of myself. I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for coming to the very first live stream on my channel. I'm very excited to be able to do this for all of you. And I've got some questions here that you guys asked for. You all participated in a vote if you wanted to see me do my wig and how I cut and style my Anne Margaret wig, because I'm going to be doing that for the Bye Bye Birdie video that I have planned. You also wanted to see how I set up my YouTube studio and just my photography studio, and that a close one. But for the most part, the winner was a Q&A. So I figured I would do a Q&A in my studio. I have it mostly set up right now to shoot Bye Bye Birdie. I still have my dress on my dress form here, but it is so wonderful to see all of you. I hope you are all doing well this week and that you're looking forward to the weekend. I'm curious to know if anybody has any good weekend plans. But we are just going to jump into all of your questions. I have a whole bunch of questions here from you guys, and I'm very excited for them. Some of them are really, really good. So the first question that I got was, what is my dream Broadway role? And I think that's a great question. I have a couple, and the first one that I've always wanted to do is Elle Woods on Broadway. I love Elle so much. I'm a California girl, and when I first saw the MTV live version of it with Laura Bell Bundy, I thought it was going to be really silly and cheesy. I had never really seen the movie. I thought it was kind of, just a regular comedy movie. And when I tuned in and I saw the musical, it was so well done. The characters were really well fleshed out. I was so impressed. And immediately, right then and there, I became obsessed with Legally Blonde. And so that's definitely a dream role of mine. The other dream role that I have is to do Satine in Moulin Rouge, especially if I can get Michael to be Christian, because the movie I was most obsessed with growing up was definitely Moulin Rouge, and the fact that it's a musical now just makes my heart so happy. And it was also the whole reason, in part, why Michael and I met the first night that we were ever talking on the phone together. We were singing Moulin Rouge. I had messaged him because he happened to have posted an Instagram story watching Moulin Rouge, which I thought was very cool. And then my third would probably be something like, I'd love to bring back Guys and Dolls, to be honest. I love doing Adelaide. I've done Adelaide 4 times, but I think that would be really fun to do again. But obviously something great like just Glinda. Who doesn't want to be Glinda or Elphaba, right? So those are definitely my dream roles. I also had another question of what my songwriting process is like. So I do write music. I don't write as much as I used to growing up, but I do still write music. And it's interesting because I never played an instrument well enough to write music. I just always heard lyrics and melody in my head. So sometimes that does cause me to get stuck or not be able to finish a song. But I took a writing course with Ryan Tedder on Monthly, which I now think is called Studio. It was really great. I highly recommend it. And we really started to just layer samples to build the beat and the whole song. And then once you kind of built out what you liked in this song and kind of started to hear, oh, I think this is a verse, I think this is a chorus, I think this is a bridge in the music, then you just mumble on top of this beat until you kind of start to hear words in these mumbles, and then you start to kind of create that way. And I loved creating that way. I don't get a lot of time to do that, and I have to kind of reset up my computer to be able to handle that. But I really enjoyed writing that way, and I do, if I can get an option to. I love starting with the music and then trying to hear what lyrics come out of that and what story the music is trying to tell. So that's kind of my songwriting process. Also, sometimes I think of a topic and just really want to write something to it. So I'll start with some poetry and I'll just write out poetry or feelings until I'm starting to either see a beat or a phrase pattern or something. It kind of creates its own rhythm sometimes. And so I also do that. The next question I got is, do I ever get nervous before performing? Yes. I get nervous quite a bit before performing, but I think that's good because it means that you care. And I think that that's totally normal. So if you get nervous, don't worry about it. It just means that you really care a lot. But I will find that a lot of times, especially when we're in our show or right before I walk on stage for $1 Million Quartet or something, I just close my eyes and I love to visualize. So I will just take the first few moments of the show before I'm out on stage and I'll take a deep breath and I'll close my eyes and I will just think about how great it feels to do such a good job and what I'd like the performance to feel like, and kind of visually see what is going to happen. Essentially, I learned that from one of my acting coaches, Joshua Finkel, especially for auditions, and I have found that it works wonders. And then you feel almost like you've already gone through it. You know what's going to happen and what's to be expected, and so it helps you get really excited and just feel a little bit more calm as well. I also got the question of, how do I balance performing and trying to make content? I am a new content creator and a performer, and I don't know how to do this. Well, it's not easy. And the best advice that I got was from Daryl Eves in his book, and from Myron, and he took from Daryl, and they said, turn the camera on. If you're going to do it anyways, just turn the camera on. And I think that that's real. I also think that you have to be really good at scheduling your day. I've gotten really good at trying to pre-plan what I want to do and when I want to do it, because otherwise I find I just get so overwhelmed and so busy that I won't get it done. And that's not ideal, right? So I do have a list of things that I want to create, and I try and make sure that I schedule those in a planner. And then I have a whole page of things that I have filmed but not edited. I have a page of things that I've edited, not posted. And then I have a page of things that are fully posted, fully finished, and done. And I try and also on my phone keep folders. It's like finished and ready to post, or finished posted things, so that way I can move them folder to folder as I have my system going along. So if I've got an idea, I'll make a folder for that idea, and then I'll put all the raw content in there so I know, hey, I just have to grab this folder to be able to edit it. Once it's edited, I'll put it into the ready to post. Once it's posted, I'll put it in finished posts. So that way it also kind of helps me stay on track and not get overwhelmed or lost, which also saves a lot of time. Also, I will let you guys in on a little secret. I have created a freebie that I'm going to be launching very soon, which is 30 days of content ideas and content creation. And I'm going to also be creating a 90-day version for you guys as well. So if you ever get stuck coming up with ideas, you can pull from that, and hopefully that also keeps you motivated. All right, I have another question here, and this one is, there's so many, I'm trying to go through all of them. What is a dream photo shoot that I haven't done yet? I really like that question. I have so many dream photo shoot ideas. You have no idea. Obviously, I built my studio to be able to do that kind of stuff. And there's not enough time in the day or space in my brain for all the ideas that I want to do. The first one that I've really been dying to do is a series where I recreate playbill photos or covers from musicals and shows that I really would love to be a part of. So I really want to do a Moulin Rouge one and build a windmill, baby windmill in the back, and then have Michael and me and like the whole shebang. I've got an outfit already. I had basically almost finished setting up a Legally Blonde shoot right before I got injured. So I have that one on the list. I think doing a Wicked one where I do both sides and then I superimpose myself would be really cool. So doing a whole series like that. I typically think in terms of series for photo shoot concepts. So another dream photo shoot concept I haven't done yet is like magazine covers. I think it'd be really fun to show people kind of the lighting setup and how, like, if you could put yourself on the cover of Forbes or Vogue and kind of try and shoot in those styles. I think it's just a really fun challenge for myself too, as like a creator and photographer, kind of figuring out like how did they do that lighting setup, and then also just putting my own creative spin on it and seeing what it would look like if I was in those things. So I definitely have some of those. I love pinup. So I have a bunch of just pinup series. One that I really want to do is like a cute, like almost like painting myself pinup style painting, because I have a ginormous canvas that I've had for years that I don't know what to do with. And I think this would be the perfect photo shoot for it. And it would be really cute with some overalls and paint splatter everywhere. Very simple backdrop. So it's very easy for anybody to recreate. You can do the little paintbrush with the like, you know, and smudges, and I think that would be really cute. I also have a series that takes a lot of work. I started working on it when I was on the ship, and then I didn't get a chance to finish it. And I was doing a full crystal cosplay lingerie pinup series where I was creating crystal lingerie versions of my favorite pinup characters like Elsa, Black Widow, Pink Power Ranger, Harley, and then I was going to do them in this like really pretty, like almost Dita Von Teese burlesque style photo shoot for each of them. So I had a lot of fun creating the lingerie pieces, and then I just never got a chance to put all the crystals on them. There's a lot of crystals, so it just takes some time. I was hoping to kind of do one every quarter, and it's still kind of on my goal bucket list as well. And then I think that's it for the most part for big goal photo shoots. I planned a whole bunch of fun just as well. And then of course, you guys, I'm sure have seen the very first Rhaenyx Rise from the Ashes shoot where I made my black dress. It's up on my channel of how I made that dress. That is a series for each season, and we were so busy, and I was just still really injured at the end of the year, and we didn't get a lot of snow till very late. But I wanted to do a whole series with each season. So it's like the evolution of a phoenix coming from the ashes in the fall, and then working her way through the snow in the winter, like trying to keep her flame alive, having like a black to white, and then spring coming in and the white to color as she's starting to find herself. And then in summer, she's in like full phoenix. So that's kind of a series I still want to do. And I've kind of designed some of the outfits for them. I just didn't really get a chance to do the winter one, which would have been next, because we did not get a lot of snow until we were traveling. So that's still on the list for this year. I'm going to make it happen. It may be out of order, but then I'll post them all in order. Hey, Jason, how are you doing? It's so good to see everybody on. I know, I'm very excited about the full series. Are there any questions, by the way, that you guys have? If you guys have any questions for me about performing, social media, anything, leave them in the chat below. I'd be happy to answer them. I'm going through some of the ones right now that you guys have already submitted to me, but I will be here answering all your questions. I want you guys to be very inspired. I want you to, as performers and creatives, really start to see social media as a tool and a resource as well to help yourself grow and showcase your abilities so you can book more work, not just in the room, but without even having to be in the room. And I have really learned throughout the years of learning social media and doing everything that it is such a gift. I actually learned it because I hated it. And I had a previous YouTube channel where I taught nerdy art to children. So you can go find that somewhere in the ether of the world. And I didn't really use social media to promote or do anything. I definitely did it as a consumer, but I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea of posting and all this work and all these hashtags and all this stuff. And so I started to learn it because I want my channel to be successful. And then that way, if I learned it, I wouldn't have to be on it very much. And that is true, by the way. But I also really found a freedom and an appreciation in social media, especially nowadays, because so many people are being discovered online, and it's so hard to get into an audition room, and you don't need to. I mean, you do, but it's not the only resource anymore. So many people are being discovered, and you can showcase your abilities and your personality and all the things that make you amazing that they really don't get to see in 2 minutes or 5 minutes in an audition room. And I think that there's such a freedom to that. Plus, it's a space for you to just grow and create and share who you most authentically are and what your passions are and what you love to do, and find the people that love that, want to support that, get excited about that, want to talk about it with you. So maybe those people aren't around in your life, and so you feel like you never get to express that side or show that side, but online you can find an incredible tribe of people and such a great community that you can grow and be seen for who you authentically are and what your passions are. And within that, as that audience grows, so will your status, and so will you being seen, and that will end up booking you more jobs for the stuff that you love to do. So I am a big advocate now of social media, and that's part of why I restarted this channel, was to sort of give you guys tips and tricks and inspiration on all different types of creativity, so you guys can also work on learning and growing and really seeing that you can do it yourself. You don't have to always hire a photographer or a videographer, that you guys are such creative and wonderful individuals that you can really do this yourself. And it's very empowering and inspiring as an artist to feel like you can create whatever is in your head with so much freedom. So I see a question from Jason. Given how integral I am to my husband's show, how do I find the time to satisfy my needs and create my own things without compromising everything else? That is a great question, Jason, because last year, that is exactly what happened. I did compromise on my own needs, and not just for my husband's show, but I ended up helping out in a couple other shows, and kind of in the long run, it ended up, as most of you know, getting me hurt, and accidents happen, but I was so busy working and helping on everyone else's dreams that I kind of forgot to work on my own, and most of my vision board because of that didn't come true, which I'm a big advocate, by the way, of vision boards. So you don't have one, you aren't making one, you should, because they're fantastic. And so this year, as I was healing and getting better, I really put my foot down and I said, I have to delegate more. I also, just because I know how to do a bunch of stuff and people like to rely on me, I have to also make those boundaries where I say, I can't, even sometimes for stuff for our show, I have to give it to somebody else, or I can't have this be my job. And that's really hard because I love our show and I'm very much involved in our show and I'm really passionate about it. And so I do try and find a way to weave our show into my passions and what I'm working on. But my big goal for myself is social media. I've loved it. I've been on it for 10 years. My first YouTube channel gained 5,000 subscribers 10 years ago in a year. And I've always wanted to do it. And every time I start to get started on doing my photography and my social media stuff, something happens and something gets in the way and something gets busy. And I just finally realized, like, I'm getting older, right? We always get older. And I needed to start really remembering who I was. I was starting to feel kind of lost in the background of everybody else. And so I got myself an agent. I have an agent now. I'm very excited. And I'm redoing the studio. So I just re-cleaned out the studio. I have a little bit more to do. So hopefully I'll give you guys a full studio tour soon. And because I love photography, I learned advanced selfies, if you will. I never considered myself a photographer through Sorelle Amour. If you don't know who she is, go look her up on YouTube. She's fantastic. But she really inspired me. I had a Canon 7DD from when I was doing YouTube that I hadn't touched in a couple years. And as performers, we have to promote ourselves, right? And we always need new promo photos for, like just advertising purposes online, keep people engaged. And it's expensive to always have to pay a photographer. Not that they're not worth it, but if you're a starving actor or performer, that's not a resource that's viable in the budget a lot of times. And what I really loved was I started taking my own photos, and I had such a bigger reaction on the photos that I took myself of me than the ones that I had photographers take of me. And not just that, but I got to create, like I got to come up with this idea. The first shoot I ever did was a Valentine's pinup shoot at a bookstore and in a park. Most of you guys know those photos. They're still some of my favorite photos. They were the very first photos I ever took of myself, and I'm really proud still how they came out. And it kind of really inspired me to go, I can bring an entire vision in my head to life without having to entrust my vision to somebody else. And that may be a little bit of a control freak of me. But I just never found that if I was telling somebody my vision and having to just trust them and me only be the model, it never came out right. And in this case, I got to pick the location and I got to pick the angle. And a really fun tip for all of you is if you pull up reference images, like I'll use pinup for an example because that's my favorite. I'll grab reference images of my favorite pinup photos that I'm kind of using as pose guides and stuff for that shoot. And I'll look at that photo and I'll see, where is the light? Where is the angle of the camera? Is it down low? Is it up high? Is it to the side? So I look at those little things, and that really helps clean up my photos right away instead of just kind of setting the camera in the middle and hoping you get a good photo. So looking at the photos that you love as reference and seeing what that person did will help you improve your own photography. And it's kind of a fun little puzzle too, if you will. But yeah, I'm so passionate about doing photography now. It's really wild to see the photo that I took in this downstairs studio in our house, now up on massive billboards. But it has been a struggle for quite a long time to balance my needs and other people's needs. And I'm really happy this year that I've been working and pushing, even if it's messy, even if it's not perfect, even if I miss something or skip a week, that I'm still going. I'm making my goals the priority this year, especially as we've got some things up and running. How do I make the lighting so perfect? Well, I have Amaran 300 lights. Those are what are in the background, and I love them. They have effects. They're full RGB. They are really great. They're pretty small. They're not tiny. I also have the Westcott 60s that are teeny tiny, and that's what I'm using right in front of me, I've got a large softbox with a grid on it. And then I have these two are strip 1x4 softboxes with grids on them. I'll definitely show you guys a full studio tour, but honestly, lighting, you learn the rules of lighting. It's important. But at the end of the day, I think I didn't consider myself a photographer for a long time because I felt like, well, I didn't train in this and I didn't know this. And it's all about your own artistic eye. What looks good to you? You know what looks good to you. You know what's aesthetically pleasing and you know what you want to create. So art is subjective, and I find that sometimes the best way to get the best lighting is to do what you think is pleasing to what you want to come up with and create. And I change my lighting a lot depending on the shoot. So you'll probably see some photos. I did a noir style shoot, and I used my optical spot with some grid lines, and that was really cool. I hated it at the time, and now I've gone back and looked at the photos. I'm like, they're pretty cool. Like I should release these. I photograph so much, and I'm honestly so hard on myself that you guys, I don't think, have seen probably 90% of the photo shoots that I have done that I expected to release because I become so picky. But I'm going to release them anyways because hopefully they'll inspire you or they'll show you how I grow and progress. But good lighting is just anything that you have on hand. You can use a giant window. You can use really pretty candlelight. If you want a lighting setup like this, a couple of great soft boxes, and just a high enough powered light is kind of all you need. Once you learn the things like perspective and photography, it really brings out possibilities. Yes, I love playing with perspective. Absolutely. I also say there's so many people that say that they aren't photogenic, and I just don't believe that's true. I think everybody is photogenic. I think you have to understand that different lenses will warp your face in different ways. That's why the 85mm is a portrait lens, right? It's the closest thing that mimics the human eye. And if you go down to a 24, you're going to get warped features, but that can also be a choice aesthetically. Also, where you put the camera, a lot of people I actually have my phone right here. A lot of people like to take their photos when they're out with their friends like this. So you've got the camera tilted and it's up at your face. And what that's going to do is it's going to make the top half of your body really large, and then you're going to have tiny little stubby legs. And so people are like, I look so fat. I don't look good. No, it's not you. I promise. If you take it at basically belly button height and you make sure that you hold the camera completely straight up and down, don't tilt it, and you hold it at belly button height, what it's doing is it's making sure that your proportions on top and bottom are even, and you'll really see how much better you look. If you want long legs and you really want to, minimize the top half of your body, you may want to take it a little bit lower, get that powerful, long-legged stance, almost looking down at the camera. And that perspective you can play too. If you've got a camera up here, you look more sweet and innocent. You've got a camera lower, you're going to look more powerful and domineering. But in everyday life, if you're just taking photos with friends, I personally recommend right around the belly button height, and then don't tilt your camera. Also, fun trick that I learned from doing red carpets is if you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, it stops you from smiling too big, because most people, even me, I have really big cheeks, will smile and it'll close up their eyes and they'll get all squinty. So if you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and then I call it turtling, but if you stick your chin out and down slightly, it cuts your jawline, because most people, when they go to take a photo, they get nervous and they pull back and then they get a double chin, and they don't actually have a double chin. Then they think they have a double chin that they don't have, because you guys are gorgeous. So if you go out and down, you'll see it cuts the jawline a little bit better, and then tongue to the roof of your mouth, and it stops you from smiling too big. Ta-da! So that's my my helpful everyday how to look good in a photo with your friends trick. I've got another question here. What platform do I focus on most and why? Oh, well, my love and passion is YouTube. I find that it has the most potential for growth, also for just being helpful and to interact with an audience. So for me, my big passion was, and always will be YouTube. But I do love TikTok. I find it to be very, very fun. And I'm getting better at going back and posting on Instagram and Facebook. I like them. Obviously with photography and everything, their Instagram is definitely my preference. But I just had never wanted to like write posts and things like that. And I've kind of started to enjoy sharing and inspiring information, you know, that I know with photos I've taken. And so I've started to have fun with that. But at the end of the day, no matter what, it's YouTube. I love YouTube. It also has the best potential for growth and monetization out of any platform. So if that is something that you are interested in, I basically tell all performers, anyone and everyone, get a YouTube channel, do it, and just turn the camera on. Whatever you're already doing day to day, somebody wants to know about it. Somebody's going to find it interesting. Turn the camera on, and eventually somebody from YouTube will end up monetizing everything, and you'll make some extra money already doing what you do. So I love YouTube. That is my main focus always. Let's see what the next question we have here is. Ooh, how do I build a brand as a performer? I actually have a full video idea planned for this, but I'm going to go into a little bit of detail for you guys. And I would say, obviously, as performers, you know, and actors, you feel like you're a blank canvas and you have to be a blank canvas. But online, you don't just want to be a blank canvas. So what I like to recommend is take 3 things, call them your USP, and in this case, I call it your unique selling point. So take 3 of your passions that you could talk about all day, right? So for me, it would be performing, you know, or and creativity, crafting, photography, and social media. And it makes a very interesting combination. So I would start with finding what your USP is, and then from there, I would say really lean into the things that make you interesting, different, and authentic. So instead of just, I'm an actor, I like singing and dancing, everybody knows that, you know? That's not unique. It's not what makes you stand out. But if you're an actor who is a construction worker that loves to bird watch, well, that's pretty interesting. People want to know about that. How do you incorporate all 3 things together? And, you know, what would somebody with all those 3 things for your brand look like, right? I have our friend Gabe at the theater. He's our stage manager. You know, he's a magician, but he also does martial arts. And that's a really interesting combination. He could then do a lot of things that aren't just look at me doing magic, but how can you incorporate martial arts into your magic tricks? Or, you know, how can you compare the everything that you need and the structure and foundations of martial arts into how you train and practice for magic, etc., etc. So having those 3 unique things that most feel authentic to who you are is a great way to start your brand. And then you can grow from there. But that's what's really going to set you apart and make you stand out. So I'm very excited. What 3 things do you guys think would be your USP? I'm very curious. What 3 things feel most authentic to you? Let's see if we can come up with some cool stuff and some fun ideas. I'd be very curious. Let's see what another question is. What is the most unexpected skill I have learned in my career? Well, one of them has got to be belly dance. I started belly dancing and pole dancing for fun, and I've actually ended up needing to be a belly dancer quite a bit for my career, which is very interesting because I was just doing it for dance. Also stunts. I did stunts, so that was a really interesting thing that I have found is very useful in my career. That's a really good question though. I'm trying to think. I mean, I was a professional figure skater, and I've definitely gotten to use that for doing some background and other stuff like that. And then let's see. How do I stay motivated? Oh, that is hard. You know what? I find the best way that keeps me motivated is there are days you just don't want to get up. There are days that you get up and your body hurts. I just made a post about this actually, and you don't want to go perform. Maybe life is falling apart. Something's happened. You're just not feeling well. Whatever it is. You're feeling depressed. You haven't been booking auditions, and it makes you sad, right? Well, I personally, the thing that keeps me most mentally on track and mentally motivated is every single morning without fail. And I find that when I slip and I stop doing this, I lose my motivation. So I try very hard to always keep this in my routine. But I get up every morning. I make myself my favorite cup of tea, put in my collagen, for all the good health. And then I go out on my patio and I bring my journal, I bring a book, I bring my tea, and I bring my incense. And I light my incense that my mom got me. They're really, really nice. And I say my intention of what I want this meditation, morning session to be. And then I sit there and I close my eyes and I listen to the wonderful world around me. And I meditate for 5 minutes. And I say some internal affirmations about what I most need or what I'm most working on at the time. And then I do a little meditation journal. Only takes maybe about 5 minutes. And I try and read a chapter in a book that is inspiring to me at the time. And I find that when I do that and I take that time for myself before I touch my phone, before I get bombarded by all the things that the world wants to throw on you, taking those minutes for yourself in the morning, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's an hour, is so important. And it really helps me set up mentally and get me excited. I roll out of bed, I'm not feeling good. And even this morning, I was really sick last night. I woke up, I was so tired. I was like, oh, I could just sleep in, but then I have to go straight into just, pulling all the stuff out, getting ready for this. And instead, I stopped myself, said, you're gonna feel better if you do this. I got up and I did it. And I got really excited to get to go do this, because when you keep making sure that the first thing in your brain, and ideally even the last thing at the end of the day, if you have a little end of the day journal, dump out all the stuff that's in your brain, get it out there, and then refocus, say your affirmations, tell yourself what you most want, stare at your vision board right before you go to bed. So your brain has that as you sleep on it. But it makes such a big difference getting your head on straight and focusing first thing in the morning. That is the best way I stay motivated, genuinely. And I really recommend it. It's a very simple morning routine. Some people have really extensive, crazy ones. But I would say a morning routine is essential, even if it's just 5 minutes. And my best quote that I can give was from I believe a Zen proverb. And they said something like, if you feel like you can't meditate for an hour, then do it for 2. And I do believe that that's really true. If you can't take 10 minutes for yourself, take a half hour, because you are trying to prove to yourself and your brain that you are worth it, you deserve it, and all these external things are not as important as your mental state and your health and your well-being. When you take the time for yourself and you prove to yourself that you're worth it, it makes a big difference. All right, I'm going to answer just a couple more questions, And if you guys have any more questions, definitely leave them in the comments below. I love seeing all you guys. I love interacting with all you guys. Let's see if I can find one that, what do I do if something goes wrong on stage? Oh my gosh. I gotta be honest, sometimes, depending on the show, but I kind of love it when something goes wrong on stage because that's the whole fun of stage, versus like when I'm filming for movies or TV shows or something, right? Then they just call cut and you do it again. But for stage, it's there. It lives in the reality and you have to address it. And obviously, if it's somebody messing up a dance move, like that's not so ideal. But if it's a play or anything like that, I love the improv aspect of having to figure it out on the fly and address it. It's just the best to me. So what do I do when something goes wrong on stage? Well, first, you don't panic, because you don't want that to show. You don't panic. You got to roll with the punches. I'll give a good example from our show. Recently, we were on the road, and when we're on the road and theaters are different, sometimes we can't like close the curtain, the main in between to do certain resets. So we have to be very particular about when we're putting stuff in and out. And sometimes things get missed. We had a show where we start Thriller at the top of the second half. The main is not closed. And the Thriller chair that we shove Michael in and make him disappear wasn't out on stage, which is bad because how does Michael disappear then? And everybody started panicking, right? Like Thriller's going on. He's going, it's close to midnight. And there's no chair. And I had to stop because they were going to just shove it out. They weren't even fully dressed yet. And I said, no. It would look really weird and awkward if we just pushed a chair out on stage. So what I had them do was I love to think about the intention. So for all you actors out there, thinking about the intention of genuinely, especially a character, how that character would react or respond. Would they say anything? Would they, ignore it? Would they have a look? So in this case, we're zombies. And if we're trying to make Michael disappear, the best time actually to push the chair out would be as we're all coming on because we're up to something sinister. So as our zombie entrance came on, I had us push out the chair so it had intention and purpose. And things like that are the best way to combat sometimes a mess up or a mistake when something goes wrong. And sometimes there's just nothing you can do and you just got to laugh it off, keep moving on. I tell the girls, if there's anything that ever gets in the show, take it out on Beat It, not actually on each other, but that intensity, pretend that person is the fact missed the Thriller chair and you're just so mad at yourself. So you just, you get it out, but use whatever the mistake is or whatever, happens, just think about it with intention and just, just keep going. And at the end of the day, it's one moment and you'll have another show and it'll be better tomorrow or it won't, or it'll be different and that's okay. What is the worst thing that ever happened to me? Ever happened to me on stage? Ooh, I guess getting injured, right? That was pretty bad. Let me think. I've had several embarrassing moments on stage. Worst thing that ever happened to me on stage. I've had some really bad sets I've been on for film, if we're not talking exclusively on stage. That was pretty awful. I'm trying to think. I'll give you a horror audition story. How about that? That one comes to mind. So I was a freshman in high school and I was the only kid that was not a part of choir or theater. And it was just because I was transferring from a private school. I was one of the last people to register. And I kind of didn't know that to audition for the theater department, oh no, there's, the politics of everything, right? And so I was the only kid that wasn't a part of one or the other of the performing arts, because I just couldn't get in, that was auditioning. And it was pajama game. And the boy I had a crush on was actually, he was a senior. He was sitting in the audience and he was watching all the auditions with his friends, and they were doing Macbeth. And so they had, I had to pause for a second. I was like, wait, I'm not in a theater. I'm in my own studio. I'm going to be okay if I say this, this name. But that's what they were doing. And the projector for the show, so they could do all of the, visuals and stuff, was sitting at the edge of the stage. And we got to the dance audition part, and oh man, some girl, I guess, did not like me. We had a high kick section and she pushed me, and I ended up kicking the projector off the stage and breaking the projector during my dance audition, and everybody hated me. I felt so bad. I was certain I was not going to get a part in the show after that. He did not like me. So that was pretty traumatic. Most definitely. That was a pretty bad, worst experience on a stage for an audition anyways. I'm trying to think of what else would be really terrible stage moment. I can't think of anyone. I haven't had too many. Had some interesting ones, but not too bad. If I think of one, I'll definitely come back to it. I've definitely got to have a couple. Oh, I do have one. Actually, worst experience ever on stage. Okay. This ties into the songwriting question and why I don't songwrite as much as I used to. So, I was also a freshman in high school, and I wrote songs ever since I was little, and I just never showed anybody. And I had a couple girls in my choir class that were my friends at the time grab my notebook and ask me what I was doing. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. They said, looks like you're writing a song. So I don't know what you're talking about. I don't do that. And they looked at it and they go, this looks like a song. Will you sing me your song? And I was like, I really don't want to. And I did, because, they were my friends. I was like, maybe I'll be brave and somebody will hear it. Maybe it won't suck, right? And they liked it. And they actually came a couple days later with a whole stack of quotes for me, cheesy quotes. And they gave me a challenge to write a song only using those cheesy love quotes that, of course, teenage girls would pull. So I did. And actually, it's a pretty fun song. But that week, the theater was doing a talent show, and we all came to just watch and support our friends who are auditioning. I did not want to audition, especially after everything else that had happened with Pajama Game. And I'm sitting there and we're hanging out, and the girls are like, you should go audition. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I don't need to make any more people angry at me. I'm perfectly happy just sitting here watching, hanging out with everyone. And they were like, no, you should audition. So when the theater teacher called, who's next, they pushed me out of my chair, and I ended up like standing up, and he's like, go, get up there. What are you going to do? And I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anything planned. I was sitting there and I was panicked and scared. I'm looking at them like, I don't know. I was trying to think of what songs did I like to sing that I could sing, from karaoke, because I do karaoke all the time. And my friends were like, do your song. And I don't know what came over me, but I started to sing my original song that they had taken my little lyrics from and gotten me to sing for them earlier. And he looked at me and he was like, will you have music for this by Friday? I said, yeah. Course. Yeah. And as I mentioned to you guys earlier, I didn't play an instrument well enough to do music. So that was going to be a challenge. he was like, great, we'll see you Friday. You're in. I couldn't believe it. I called my vocal coach, my very first vocal coach, Mary at the time, and I was like, I need help. Can you help me make music? Can we record like the piano? Can you come up with something? Please help me. And she said yes. So I came over and just kept singing the song over and over and over again. And she was plunking away on the piano and made magic happen. Except every time after we finalized what it would sound like, every time she'd go to record it, there was one note on the piano that when she hit it, her dog, who was deaf, could hear, and he'd start howling, and we'd have to re-record it again until basically he tired himself out. So it took 16 takes on this CD. And I went to school that Friday, gave them the CD, and I told them, I said, it's track 16. And I got up there and he started to play track 1. I said, no, it's not track 1, it's track 16. So the tech guy wrote track 16 all over my CD, right? And I was really nervous. The boy that I wrote it for was sitting in the audience. I doubt that he knew it was for him, but I was terrified. Like, I went from, I'm only singing this in my bedroom. I've only ever written songs in my bedroom that I wouldn't even let my mom see. I wouldn't even sing or write if I knew she was in the house. Like, to, I'm singing this for 500 plus people at my school, and I'm not the cool, popular kid. And so I got to the show that night, and as I got there, I'm getting up on stage and they call me. It was the only time in my entire life that I actually felt like a deer in headlights. I had this big spotlight in my face. I've been on stage a lot, but I mean, it was like a blinding, singular spotlight, full black stage, couldn't see anything, anyone, could barely see like the rest of the stage. And then they gave me a boom stand microphone stand instead of a regular one. So every time I put the mic in and out, the arm would swing. It was not good. And I guess there was another tech guy, and he convinced the tech guy that was there from the afternoon rehearsal, why would anyone want track 16? Of course it's track 1. And so I got halfway through my song and a dog started barking and the whole thing started over again. I didn't know where I was at. I was already really scared. I had never felt so uncomfortable on stage in my whole life. I ran off the stage crying, hid behind the band equipment, and did not write a song again for probably another 5 to 7 years because I just was like, I can't write music. So that was probably the most traumatic stage experience I've ever had. But yeah, that's probably the worst thing that ever happened to me on stage. Almost everything else I can kind of handle and deal with. But that one was bad. So just know, for any of you out there, if you've had a traumatic experience, you will get over it. You will grow from it. And it does get better. It doesn't ever go away, but it does get better. And don't let it define you. I let it define me for way too long. So let's see. What's another question? I'm going to answer maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and that'll be it for today. Oh, I did get a question also on Instagram. Somebody asked me, what is my favorite part in the show that for our MJ the Illusion show? And that's a tough one because if it's for dance, probably Smooth Criminal, but Jam is a close second, but probably Smooth Criminal. I love doing Smooth Criminal so much. If it's singing, I love singing my duet with Michael because obviously it's the first song we ever sang on stage together. It means so much. But honestly, probably my favorite thing to sing is Man in the Mirror. I love the BGVs for that. They're so much fun. There's so much soul. They're so pretty. And it's the end of the show. So I'm like, yeah, we're done. So my favorite BGVs and knowing that we're done and it's just, I can just groove and hang out. Those are probably my 3 favorite moments. And then my other favorite moment, my favorite lyric in the show, if you will, because it cracks me up all the time, is Wannabe, which after our pose that we hold forever. Michael says, if you can't feed the baby, don't have a baby. Don't think maybe if you can't feed the baby. And I always say, words of advice by Michael Jackson. That cracks me up. So that's probably my favorite lyric in the show. That is sung because it's just funny to me. So there's that. All right. Last question. I want to pick a really good one for all of you. I've answered that one. I've answered that one. I've answered that one. That one I basically answered. Okay. Oh, interesting. What are your must-haves when designing something new? Well, I guess it depends on what I'm designing. So I won't maybe answer this in such a, you must have this tool and this tool and this tool. But when I get inspired to create, I think in sort of a couple of parts. So the must-haves when I am designing something new is I like to come up with a concept and a theme, even a little bit of a story. I just feel like I can't build anything if it doesn't tell a story somehow, because how else can people connect? So I like to have some sort of theme or story and as a must-have, and then from there I go into great detail about what do I want to wear or design or find as a costume, outfit, jewelry. And then I go into what would that world look like? And I like to start to brainstorm what that world would look like, and am I going to shoot it actually outside in the real world and find a location or an area, or am I going to build something that's like fun and hyper realistic in here so it feels intentional but still gorgeous? I think that there's something really magical in that. I never thought I'd be much of a studio photographer creator, but I actually really love the control, and it gives this very theatrical feel when I build sets in here instead of just finding them out there, because it reminds me kind of when you build a set on a stage, right? It's got this almost hyper realistic feel, and I really enjoy that. So I start to take a look at how do I build this world to come to life in this space? And then I'll look at, what lighting complements that world. But if I have even an outfit that I want to shoot, right? And I need to design the rest of everything else, I look at what story, when I look at that outfit, what story does that outfit feel like? Does it feel medieval? Does it feel, rock and roll and edgy? And, this is probably a very abstract answer for this question. I mean, we have so much here. We're like Hobby Lobby and Spirit Halloween and, BH Photo all in one. So I have a lot of the tools that I need, but personally, when I start designing anything, I also love concept sketches. It is a must when I'm designing, and I really have started to fall in love with using ChatGPT to help bring some of my ideas to life, because I'm not the best sketch artist. So I can get really detailed and talk out those ideas, and I can even draw out not so great reference photos and grab other pieces of reference photos of what's in my head and upload them. And I can start to then refine until I really find something that I'm like, yes, this is what I want to create. And that's basically how I created my Rise from the Ashes dress. Was I had this idea, this shoot concept of like, I really want to build out Rhaenyx as a brand and like a brand shoot, and I want one for the air and one for the ashes and one in, full fiery glory. So what would each of these costumes look like? What would this concept look like? And you guys haven't seen these photos from the shoot, but I actually built a nest where I wore like nude top and bottom, and we wrapped me in like black gauze with all of the ash pits around, and we smeared ash on my face so it looked like I was being born out of the ashes and then rising from the ashes in that dress. And so I really love having reference photos first and foremost, even if they're ones that I create using ChatGPT. They are so helpful, and then I can visually see all the details of what I need to do and get done. And I can also start to see if I like that angle or what the lighting looks like I talked about earlier. So it really helps make the process a lot easier, and I'm not trying to pull what's in my head. I can make it tangible in reference photos. So that is kind of what I need to start designing, I guess, is reference photos first and foremost. I kind of brainstorm the whole thing, build some reference photos, and then I get going. So thank you all so much for coming on to today's live stream. I hope that these questions, tips, and tricks have really helped you, inspire you both as a performer and getting you onto social media so other people can see your greatness. But other than that, until next time, make sure that you guys have liked and subscribed, hit that little notification bell so if we do more live streams and when another video comes up, you won't miss it. And make sure you leave in the comments down below either what kind of videos you would like to see me post in the future, some tutorials, tips, tricks, or just what general Q&A questions you guys have for next time. Once again, I hope you guys are going to have a good weekend. I hope you have a great week. And with fire and grace, I'm Rhaenyx. Bye, guys.